Welcome to the Post-Show Podcast with your hosts, Paul Richards, Tess Protesto, and Michael Luttermoser. Let's talk shop.
So we are so excited today to have, sorry about that, Dave Dolphin from Practical Worship. How you doing, Dave?
Man, I am so good. This is so much fun. I'm glad to be able to have an opportunity and talk about this stuff.
We're so happy to have you here. It's like too much fun. We just got off our live show with a great audience who has a lot of questions. So we're going to do a lot of Q&A. But quickly, I just want to recap, starting with why should churches be paying for copyright licensing for the songs that are, we're all trying to spread the message of God here. And, it seems like sometimes pastors are wondering, why do we have to pay for all of this?
Yeah, and there can be a sense of like, aren't we all on the same page? Aren't we all trying to do the same thing? Why are you making it so hard? It seems like this is unnecessary, all this red tape. And, like let's take an example. Let's say that there is a band that they don't even believe in God. They're atheists, and someone who is a Christian wants to take that song and do something with that. Even if that person opposes it, like the other band says, I don't want that. We as Christians might think, well, we're trying to breathe life into it. We think, and then we might justify it that way. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but I can see where that logic goes. But when the shoe's on the other foot, like if you're the one that owns the intellectual property, if you're the one that wrote the song, maybe a Christian song, and then someone else wants to use it in a manner that you're not okay with, whether that is syncing it up to video that advertises alcohol and you're strongly against alcohol, or just using it in a manner in a way that wasn't intended, where it kind of changes the meaning of what you intended. We even on the live show gave the extreme example of like, let's say they take your song, your Christian worship song, and turn it into like a satanic worship song and change a couple of the words. I mean, you would have a lot of things to say about that. You would have some pretty strong opinions about that. And so you, as the owner of that intellectual property, only you can decide that. And so there's organizations like CCLI and some others that have come along that says, okay, we're going to make this as easy as possible. Kind of, it's like, back 10, 15 years ago when Apple made the iTunes store, people were downloading MP3s illegally because the alternative wasn't as easy. Like it was either spend $20 on a CD or download it off of Kazaa. And so iTunes came in, Apple, their premise, even Steve Jobs said, look, we think that if we give people an easy option that is legal, they're going to do it. So if we're going to open the store where you can download an MP3 legally for $1, we think people are going to do it. And they were not wrong.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. And we do, and I mentioned this in the live stream, that I really feel passionate about helping artists. We talked about on Spotify, you can have 1 million Spotify listens and you're not even making minimum wage.
From Spotify?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Because streams are a completely different rate than a mechanical license that would cover a download or like a physical product.
So luckily, and we talked about this on the show, there's an organization called, for short, everyone knows them as CCLI, and they basically make the process of getting legal for a pastor, for a church, easier. Can you tell us a little bit about this organization?
Yeah, so there is an exemption in the U.S. copyright law that basically says the performance of a copyrighted song, which when you're doing Chris Tomlin's "How Great Is Our God" in church, you are performing a copyrighted song, and that there's some legalities that need to happen. But in a house of worship, as a part of a worship service, you are exempt. However, you're not exempt from putting copyrighted lyrics on your screens or putting it in the bulletin, or if you print off a chart for your band, those kinds of things legally need to be covered. And so CCLI came in and said, we're going to make that really easy. You just pay us a flat fee and based on your congregation size, and then we'll handle all the rest. And there's a lot of things that happen under the hood that we're not even aware of, that as worship pastors, like we don't care. We want Like we want to care, like we want people to be paid, and we want to do things legally, and we feel like God's going to bless that if we do it the right way. But we don't want to mess with that. We want to mess with other things. And so, organizations like CCLI have come in and said, okay, we'll handle all that. We'll take care of that. And then as things like podcasting and streaming has come in, they have also come to the table and said, we'll help with that too. We'll handle all of the issues that are coming up so you don't have to.
We keep getting this question from the chat. Should we put our license number on each stream? Should we display it in our YouTube description? Where do you display the information that you are licensed?
That's a great question. So I prefaced this on the live show. I'm going to say it here too. I'm not a lawyer, and so I'm not giving legal advice. I'm giving my experience of dealing with this over 20 years of worship ministry. So you're supposed to put it at the end of every song. And if you use a software like Pro Presenter to put your lyrics on a screen, you'll notice that it's really easy to do that. Now, a lot of people make a slide at the end of the service that says like, thanks for coming. And that slide has all the copyright information for all the songs that were done in the service. And yes, includes that CCLI number, because that needs to be included with that. And I get different answers in terms of whether or not you can do that, if that's a legal way to do it. We do that at our church and the churches that I've been a part of. And I know a lot of larger churches that do that as well. So I'm basing that on the assumption that, if a church that has 10,000 members, that's an easy target, does that, then we're probably okay in that regard. So, but that would be something that you need to do a little bit more research on that. As long as it's displayed within that service as a part of that, where it's like at the end of the service, thanks for coming, here's a slide. As long as all that information's on there, then you should be good. But yes, your CCLI number needs to be on there, because you need to be able to communicate to people and to songwriters that you have all the proper licensing in place to be able to do what you just did on your service, on your stream.
Okay, and that does include lyrics overlaid on top of a stream of a band performing.
Yeah, because there's so many different parts of copyright. There is the melody, there's the chords, there's the lyrics to all of that. So if you have a chord chart and or a lead sheet that has like musical notation, there's a copyright there that's involved. If you put words on a screen so people can sing along, there's a copyright involved. If you do a lower third that has that, there's a copyright involved. Now, the basic CCLI license covers that, any kind of like electronic or physical display of the essence of that song. And then if you get the add-on that allows you to do like podcasting and streaming and things like that, then it covers that as well, because there is also the sense that you're when you do a live stream, you're now outside of the service itself. Someone from the outside is able to see what's going on in the inside, and new laws and new things kind of start to begin to kick in that are not necessarily covered with just the event that's happening in your church building, in your service. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. We're getting another question. Is it okay if we just go over
I
some
think
questions from the chat?
Fine, yeah.
Okay. It's a good way to guide the conversation. Christopher on YouTube is saying that you mentioned CCS. Can we touch a little bit more on them? Will we need CCLI if CCS covers 25 million songs? It's kind of spendy, but seems to cover secular songs as well.
That's an incredible question, because CCS, which is the Christian Copyright Solution, they're not as well known. Like if you talk to any worship pastor, they know exactly who CCLI is. They may not know all the things that they do. They at least to the bare minimum know that they need it for whatever reason. They need it, and it's about music, and there's all that. But like I mentioned, there is that exemption that the actual performance of that song, like your band performing that copyrighted song, is exempt in a house of worship for a worship service. But what about if you do a service on the lawn at a park? You're not in a house of worship. And so CCLI is probably not going to cover you there. If you play music of your worship band on the hold when someone calls your church, that's not covered. BBS is actually another great one. Because if you have a VBS, it's yeah, you could argue that it's a worship service, and if you find yourself in a court of law, you certainly could go that direction and argue that. A lot of the answers for all these things is like, well, it depends, but it's not part of your normal weekly Sunday morning service, and so the songs that you do as a part of your VBS is not a part, it's not covered under that exemption. So if you perform that song, then other things need to apply. Now, if you do a VBS and you're connected with Lifeway or Orange and they give you a CD and here's the songs, part of what you're paying for with that package is the licensing to do that. But if you want to throw in an extra song, that's just because you want to throw in an extra song as a part of VBS, you may not be covered. And so CCS has come in and said that any public performance of a song is going to be covered. CCLI handles like the electronic and the physical displaying of the essence of a song. CCS is going to handle more the actual performance of that particular song. The thing where it gets tricky is that both of them offer a podcasting and a streaming license, so you don't need both, but CCLI only covers about 300,000 songs, whereas CCS has like 25 million songs, including secular songs. If you wanted to do like a U2 song in your service, CCS is going to cover you before CCLI does. If you pull it up and it's not in Song Select, which Song Select is a part of CCLI, if you look up in Song Select and you're looking for the chart and it's not there, CCLI is not going to cover you.
I wonder, in your experience, some of the people in the chat are saying that they do use CCLI, but Facebook will still mute their service at times. And how do you go about, proving that you do have the license if you are still getting flagged?
That's a great question, and I don't know if I have like a surefire answer for that. I can explain why that's going on, but that license that you get from CCLI to do streaming or podcasting, or if you get it through CCS, you're legal. Like, if you use Facebook or Twitch, I don't know, are churches doing live stream on Twitch? Is that a thing, or is that just for gaming?
I don't know. Twitch is definitely for more than gaming, but what do you think for houses of worship?
We do get a lot of questions about it. The thing about it is that a lot of churches are having a goal right now, and what they want to do is they want to basically get new members, and a lot of churches want younger members, right? I hear that over and over. And the demographics, when you look at it, it's younger people generally on Twitch than there are compared to YouTube and Facebook. Facebook kind of had the grandmom effect where, it was a bunch of college kids in the beginning, and then all those kids had children, and now all the grandparents want to come in, and now it's more people
get off
in there.
My Facebook. Stop looking at my stuff, Mom.
Exactly.
Where's Snapchat?
And so that's exactly kind of what happened. And so I think churches are interested in Twitch. Quickly wanted to mention, a lot of churches, Dave, I thought you had some really good advice about Facebook that I'd love for you to share on the podcast. But I think my experience is the church that I go to and many that I've talked to decide to go to YouTube. And I don't know if it's the best choice, but the reason why is because you don't have to log into YouTube. So anybody can see the YouTube stream. Facebook does have the requirement of having a Facebook account. And, a lot of churches say, well, some of our shut-ins, some of our older folks, the homebound parishioners don't have a Facebook account, and we don't want to, block them from using it. Now, over the years, it's now more and more common to stream to multiple destinations and accommodate both YouTube and Facebook. But I thought some of the things you mentioned about, sorry for sidetracking the question.
I'm the one that totally derailed the thing, so it's okay.
But you were mentioning why you think that maybe Facebook is the best place for churches to be streaming.
Yeah. The thing about that license you get from CCLI is that it covers anywhere. If it's your website, if it's like livestream.com, if it's YouTube, if it's Facebook, if it's Twitter, or it covers any of the online platforms that are there. The trick becomes that when it comes to like Facebook and YouTube early on, and this is completely aside of churches, they learned early on that people were uploading videos to YouTube that were like a cover. They were covering a song. They're in their bedroom playing their acoustic guitar, and they're doing, an NSYNC song or Justin Bieber song. And so because YouTube wanted to make things easy, because if it's not easy, then you're not going to use it and that platform's going to die. And so they learned really early, we have to figure this out. And so YouTube made something called Content ID, where they went to a lot of these content contributors and creators and said, when someone does a performance of a song, or if someone uses your audio recording, because those two things are different, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to block it? Do you want us to allow it, but you want to share in the ad revenue, or take all the ad revenue? Or do you just want to see the analytics? Or like, what do you want us to do? And then they built this system that then will, when you upload a video and it says it's processing, what it's processing is it's checking all the audio and it's comparing it against Content ID. And if it finds a match, if you used an audio recording and it's in that library, it's then going to follow whatever the rule is. If it says to block it, it's going to block it. And Content ID on YouTube is so good and it's so sophisticated because Google is amazing in what they do. They know when you perform a song, if they catch you doing a melody of something, or chord progression, like it knows. I've uploaded videos where it checks it and it's like, hey, that's Draw Me Close from the Katinas. And I'm like, okay, hello, 1996, what's going on? But they found it, they figured it out, and they discovered it. And so the system at YouTube is so sophisticated that it's going to do that. And even though you're legal, like if you find yourself in a court of law, you can show them that license and you're going to say, I'm legal. The problem is that Content ID system, because it's checking, I forget the number, but it's like there's more content being uploaded in terms of hours every single day than any human can watch in a lifetime. It's insane. And so these videos are flying around like crazy and doing all this. And so they have to catch that on Content ID. And so it's the system, the AI is going to flag that. And so now if you get a block, then you can begin to have these conversations with real humans and you can say, I can do this. And if I was in that situation, because I don't know the full answer, if I got a block, I would refute it. And I would say, hey, I have this license and this number. Hey, human at Google, what do I do? And they would take care of that. Facebook system, because it's not as complex, it mostly catches like pre-recorded master recordings. So like if you are running like pre-service music of like whatever is popular on K-Love or Way FM or something like that, that I wouldn't do. And I would even argue that you probably can't do that because that's a master song recording. So you need to get in the habit of not sending your pre-music to your live stream, just what your band is producing. And if your pastor wants to use a song or something like in his message, you might have to look into that. But the Facebook, it doesn't seem to catch that as much if you're just doing the song. If you get a strike, if Facebook does block it, I honestly don't know the question to that. I would imagine that there is, a little link in there that says, if you get this block and you think that you have the right to do this. I know people that are like, hey, I'm Amy Grant and I'm doing a live stream of my song and I'm playing this song. Amy Grant owns that Amy Grant song. And Facebook comes in and blocks it and says, you can't do this because someone named Amy Grant said that you can't do this. I'm Amy Grant. There's links you can follow to get to a human and say, how do we do this? But that's part of dealing with a system. It's part of it. And I don't know if there necessarily is a clean cut answer yet.
Well, a couple of things I can respond to, as I've dealt with a lot of this myself, is that on YouTube, there is a pretty good system in place for disputing a copyright strike. You can dispute it. And every time I've ever disputed something, basically I believe what happens is you dispute it. It goes to the copyright holder and they go, do you want to fight it? Because they're disputing it. And they go,
yes.
They've only got 150 views on this. No, I don't. There's not 1 million views. I'm not going to dispute it. On the Facebook side, they will mute your video. That's just the way Facebook's handling it. So they're just going to mute your video. And that's like the worst thing that can happen.
Yep.
So one of the things that I like to recommend...
The message and everything, they mute the whole thing.
Yeah.
They mute the whole thing. So one of the things I like to recommend for churches to think about is a lot of times what churches will do is they'll just take the output of their audio mixer and bring it into their live streaming computer with a USB audio interface, and that's the audio that they use, and they just stream that to YouTube or Facebook. But like you said, Dave, a lot of times they may be playing copywritten music beforehand or afterhand, before whatever, they're doing it at some time. Even if it's a backing track and the band is playing to a backing track that is, from a master recording, what I recommend is if you can do this, it's a little more complicated, but most of the digital mixers out there can do this, is you can have a specific, what was called, like, you have the front of house, right? The front of house mix for everyone in the church, and then you have a secondary mix that you can say, all right, well, don't send me, the music from the iPod that's playing, YouTube or whatever else. Don't send that to my mix. So it simply will not show up ever on, and that's a good like foolproof solution. A temporary solution can be just to mute all audio going to the live stream whenever you hear. I've done that a million times too. You're live streaming something, and then somebody in between bands, they turn on a Bruce Springsteen song. You're like, mute it quick. I don't want the whole 6-hour music festival that I'm streaming to be, muted on Facebook. And it's tough if you have listened to this podcast and you've seen our live stream and you know what you're doing. I believe that it's not like they're gonna slap your hand and you're gonna get really. I think you can even if
what's the worst that can happen?
Like even if it's like 10 or 20 seconds of like a copywritten song, as long as you mute it pretty quickly, you can usually avoid the copyright.
Could the artist sue you if they really wanted to? I mean, could it go really you get in big trouble, jail time?
No, there's just a lot of cease and desist.
Okay.
A really great example of this is, so do you remember a couple of years ago that a band called Cloverton did a kind of a derivative of the Leonard Cohen song Hallelujah? Do you remember this?
I don't think so.
Yes, I do.
You do?
Okay. So someone else rewrote words for that song and actually did approach the Leonard Cohen estate and said, can we do this? And at the beginning, it's like, small little band out of Kansas wants to do this. Yeah, sure, whatever. Well, the thing got huge. And so they I think the license was, and I'm speculating, but I think the license was like through December and the original agreement that they had. But then come January, like it went silent. It was off the iTunes store. And if you try to upload that video to YouTube, YouTube will block it because that Content ID system says, hey, we checked with Leonard Cohen and his estate, and he says you can't do this. So you have to bring this down. And so no one's getting sued, but they are getting cease and desist letters. So, and now if someone can argue that there's damages, like because of what you did, you have actually destroyed their own intellectual property, then yeah, you could probably do that. But that probably gets more into like you performing it probably isn't going to destroy it. But if you sync video with it, that hurts the reputation, or if you change words, or if you do things like that, and all of a sudden, you added meaning or whatever, and now it's destroying your credibility, then yeah, maybe you get sued.
White Rose Community TV's jumping in here. Can you read that for us, Tess?
They give you the option to mute out only the music in question, not the entire stream. It happened to me just last week on a sporting event, and I was streaming both to YouTube and Facebook.
Okay, so on the Facebook side, I think I have seen that now. It's changed. Everything's changing every month. You turn around to new.
That's the thing. Is that this thing is so new. Like live streaming is like 2 years old. Like on Facebook. Like
Yes,
we've
on Facebook,
only been doing this for a couple of years. This technology is so new, and so there are people at music publishing houses and all these places. They're all scrambling to figure out what do we do. Like what's how do we do this? And of course, you've got music publishers and ASCAP and BMI and all these people that are like they want to hold on to as much control as they can. But we saw this 20 years ago when there was LimeWire and Napster. They're like, what can we do? Because it wasn't so clean cut at the very beginning, because it was new and people had to ask the questions. Well, what is true? What is fair? And and if I have this file, can I share it with someone else? Is that legal? And they determined that no, but they had to figure that out. So all this stuff is new. I think 5 years from now, like this is all going to be figured out. We're going to all this stuff figured out. But because the reason why it's so complicated is because a lot of people they don't know. They don't know. It's kind of like healthcare. Like when we changed over to this healthcare system with healthcare.gov, and you try to like reach out to a Blue Cross Blue Shield and say, hey, what's covered and what's not? Nobody knew, because we're all trying to figure this out.
Getting a request to go back to a question about public TV. How about broadcasting on local cable TV? I've always been told it's okay, but we're covered by some sort of licensing that Comcast has.
Yeah. So when it comes to like radio stations, like the fact that, okay, so if you play a song on the radio, you're allowed as the consumer to record that. The same thing if a TV show comes on and you have a VCR or a DVR or something like that, you can record that. And I think it has, again, I'm going to give my disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer, but I think it has to do with the fact that public airwaves they're considered public. Like, FM and TV and everything over the air, it's considered public. And so there's already some regulations into like everyone owns it. And so if you're going to play a song on the radio or play something on television, in a sense, you're kind of giving up some rights, and everyone kind of owns that. And then when cable TV came in, they had to figure some things out. And I bet you like Comcast and stuff like that, they had things in place, because if you are a church and you are broadcasting something on the TV station and a songwriter doesn't like it, they're not coming after the church. They're coming after the television station, because it's their fault that something happened. So in the same thing with Comcast, they're going to come after Comcast because it's Comcast's fault that got aired. They're the last line in that particular leg. So could they come after you as the content creator? Maybe, but we also live in a world where you can sue anyone for any reason. It's just a matter of whether or not you have a case. If someone wants to be a jerk and wave their fist in the air and say this is wrong, they can. It's just a matter of, do you have a case or not?
How do you know all this stuff? Let's talk about that.
Because for 20 years I've been a worship pastor, and I've had to deal with this. And I remember when I was a college student, and at the Baptist Student Union, which is like the collegiate ministry for Baptists, at least here in the Oklahoma area. And I remember in 1992, our little band wanted to put together a cassette tape, if you remember those. And so we had to secure mechanical licenses. And back in the day, you had to like call someone, and then they had to send you a letter, and you had to sign it, and you had to turn it back in and tell them how many copies you were going to make and send them in a check and all these different things. They've made it a whole lot easier to do that. But even back then, I had to figure out all these different things. And that's the thing, is like, if you're a worship pastor, even if you're a senior pastor, you need to understand that these things exist. You need to know what you can and can't do, because ignorance of the law does not cover. So if you do something and it causes, and someone comes in and says, hey, you did this, and now you owe us $1.5 million in royalties, you cannot say, I didn't know. It's the same thing. Like if you speed down the street and you say, I didn't realize this was a 40 mile an hour. I thought it was 70. The police officer has all the legality to say, sorry, here's your ticket.
Yep. Well, this has been amazing.
It really has. I'll say that it's just, you do know so much about this,
claps.
Dave.
I love it.
You got the claps. Those are coming directly from Facebook and YouTube, by the way. A few from Twitch. The younger hands clapping for you on Twitch. The mechanical license thing is such great something to know about for any artist. It's so awesome how churches are not just a place of worship, but it's also a place where musicians and artists are coming together and finding a way to not only have an audience and perform live and have access to streaming equipment at times and recording, but to come together and really just join all of that, the worship experience and the artistry and musicianship. And then I think it's so great that we can tie in the legal ability for them to have a fundraiser and have a band and understand what mechanical licenses are. And then the whole overarching conversation here is, at the core of it, making sure that musicians and artists are being compensated. And, that's what we're all about here. it's not like it's intellectual property at the end of the day. And the more we can give musicians the ability to have a career, and we'll have just better music, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can wrap things up there. Maybe take a few questions after we close out the podcast. And we've got a giveaway for you live viewers, because we are live streaming our podcast for you audio listeners. So join us if you'd like to on Facebook or YouTube in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. Where can people learn a little bit more about practical worship?
Yes, the hub for all things is practicalworshipblog.com. It did start as a blog, and then I one night my wife was working late at night. I was like, and the kids go to bed. You're like, what can I do? I guess I'll make a YouTube video. And so I made a YouTube video, and I made another YouTube video. And I was like, I really enjoy being able to do this. And so there's also, if you go to youtube.com/practicalworship, I do weekly videos there that are designed to help you lead a worship band and be a leader of people. And so there's that. And then I just recently launched a podcast where kind of like, just like in this situation, like we had the 20-minute show that was like the live thing where you kind of had to like be real quick and to the point, just like a 10-minute YouTube video. But a podcast is such a beautiful place to really unpack some deeper things. And so wherever you happen to listen to your podcast, if you're listening to this podcast, whatever app you're using, search for Practical Worship and subscribe there. We have monthly content that comes out that should help you in your ministry.
Wonderful. And we totally recommend going ahead and subscribing to Dave's channel over there. So make sure you guys do that and stick around for the giveaway.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and grab the giveaway wheel.
Sure. I'm going to draw the winner. Remember, you must be present in the chat and claim your prize to get to spin the wheel. Do we have Jonathan Rowe from Maryland?
Jonathan Rowe, are you here?
Jonathan Rowe, I'll give you a minute to hop on. I will put your name in all chats. We usually give about a minute or so for you to let us know that you're here, and then we will re-pick another winner. Wow, that was a information-packed show.
It was so much info, so many gems. Lots of good tips and tricks.
I'm so glad that our podcast is working with guests now.
We did figure that out.
No, Chad, you did
I've had
not miss
two
that.
two failed podcasts in the
Don't
past.
worry.
But
Yes, we have podcast redemption today. with
podcast
Dave.
redemption.
All right, I'm going to re-pick a winner. Sorry, Jonathan.
Hold on. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Those keys we hit
John Kreft.
John Kraft. Oh, John's been here before. I love his Facebook page picture. All right, I'm gonna export this for.
Dave, it looks like you have some
Podcast.
fans in our chat. They were commenting before the show today, too, saying, oh, yeah, love his stuff.
Well, thanks, Mom, for watching. That was awesome.
I've definitely seen my parents in the chat before.
As
Biggest
Tessa's
fan.
sister is our best fan.
That's right.
That's awesome. It is funny how many times I post a video and my mom jumps in there, love you, son.
Yeah, you're just
And
like,
then, and, then,
"Aw."
and then I have my son who's 15, and he does a lot of like Minecraft and Roblox like streaming on YouTube, and so he does that. So he'll jump in my videos and he's like, first.
John
First,
Kreft
yeah.
is here. All right, John.
All
Who do
right,
you want to spin the wheel
John.
for you?
Yeah.
Michael, Paul, or myself?
Let's see if I can get a good shot of it.
Who's going to be the first camera winner of 2019?
Yeah.
I know we've yet to. Well, this is the first giveaway, I think, of
First
2019.
First
First
giveaway.
giveaway of 2019.
We're back. We're back in action. All right, Paul, do you want to do it this time?
Sure.
All right,
I will
go
do
ahead.
it. Can you I'm gonna put this down like that.
Sure.
Spin the camera.
Here we go. These headphones off.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Classic.
That was a good spin. That was a good spin.
Oh, I'm getting dizzy. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Is it gonna be the front camera?
Oh my god! Wow, it's like going crazy.
It's gonna
A free NAB pass. Ooh,
Vegas or NYC?
You're going to Vegas, baby.
You have your pick. And if you're in Chicago, can you catch a flight pretty easily either way?
Chicago, yeah.
That's
either
like
way.
a great middle spot.
be.
Hi, Ryan
We
Brenneman.
will be at
Thanks for
both, so
joining.
Yeah.
we could hang out.
Cool. Let us know. Send me your test and email, paul.richards@ptzoptics.com or test.protesto@ptzoptics.com. Dave, thank you so much for your time. You're the best. I'd love to have
Thanks,
you on again
Dave.
sometime.
So
Yeah.
good to be here.
It was a great show, so thanks a lot.
Have a nice weekend.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We could geek out on this stuff together.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a lot of learning for me too, so it's
Yeah,
interesting
it was
stuff.
so great.
It's tough stuff. It's a big topic. I have a feeling we barely scratched the surface even
I
with this
know.
conversation.
I feel like we barely did. Well, thanks, Dave.
Thank you guys all
No
for
problem.
watching. If you haven't
Thanks,
liked or
everybody.
subscribed, don't forget to show us some love there, as well as our guest Dave Dolphin and Practical Worship.
Take care, everybody. So much fun. So glad to have you all. Ryan Brenneman, I see you in the chat room. So much fun. Wow.